Good afternoon, everybody. I do pray that all is well. Today, of course, let's talk taxes with Char. Y'all know I'm always trying to get out some info and all this good stuff. So, just wanted to share the newest update on the request for innocent spouse relief. Again, all of my resources and everything comes directly from the IRS. I do not make up information or go according to Facebook or anything like that. I just want people to know what's out there. Someone may already know about this, and that's okay. This is just my way of helping someone that may not know. Okay. And for those that are married, that, is catching backlash, for your spouse or, some of their back debts and things of that nature when filing taxes, whether you file jointly, um, married, filing separate, or however, you file, you want to make sure that you're able to get the things that you can get as a spouse um, when you file your taxes instead of being held accountable for things that, your spouse may have done, in prior years or whatever. So you don't want to be held liable for that. But long story short, there's a form that you can do if this applies to you. Form 8857 is a request for innocent spouse relief. Okay. The purpose of the form, of course, again, as I stated, when you file a joint income tax return, the law makes both of you responsible for the entire tax liability. So this is called joint and several liability. Joint and several liability applies not only to the tax liability you show on the return, but also to any additional tax liability that the IRS determines to be due, even if the additional tax is due to the income, deductions, or credits of your spouse or former spouse. You remain jointly and severally liable for taxes, and the IRS can still collect them from you, even if you later divorce and the divorce decree states that your former spouse will be solely responsible for the tax. You can find this on the IRS website, Form 8857, if it applies. So that way, you can be in the know of how to go about filing this particular form for yourself. All right. So there's the link that I just clicked on. It takes you to the instructions for the form. And again, it's the request for innocent spouse relief. It tells you the purpose of the form, when to file the form. Okay. So you must file the form no later than 2 years after the first IRS attempt to collect the tax from you. Okay. In regards to your spouse. All right. So some of the collection activities that can take place is they may offset your income tax refund against the amount that you owed on a joint return for another year. The filing of a claim by the IRS in a court proceeding in which you were a party, or the filing of a claim in a proceeding that involves your property, the filing of a suit by the United States against you to collect the joint liability, the issuance of a Section 6330 notice, which notifies you of the IRS's intent to levy and your right to collection due process. So, again, if this form applies to you and you do file jointly with your spouse and then they owe back taxes, and things of that nature, this is a form that you can file on behalf of yourself. Um, you don't want to file it with your tax return. You're going to mail it to one of these addresses: the Internal Revenue Service here. And if you're using a private delivery, then you're going to do it here. Now, you can fax the form to the IRS with all of your necessary documents and attachments to this number, 855-233-8558. And then, of course, you can always, again, you can find all of this on the IRS website. I just wanted to put it out there for people that may not have known about it, and things of that nature. So you can read over all of this, and if it applies, then by all means, save yourself and, do this form for the innocent spouse. Now the IRS must contact your spouse or former spouse. Okay, there are no exceptions, even for victims of spousal abuse or domestic violence. Um, they will inform your spouse or former spouse that you did file the form and will allow them to participate in the process. If you are requesting relief from joint and several liability on a joint return, the IRS must also inform him or her of its preliminary and final determinations regarding your requested relief. Okay. Um, so the types of relief that you can get, four types are available: innocent spouse relief, separation of liability relief, equitable relief, and relief from liability for tax attributable to an item of community income. Now, you may be allowed innocent spouse relief only if all of the following apply. You filed a joint return for the years entered on line 3. There is an understated tax on the returns that is due to erroneous items defined below of the person with whom you file the joint return. You can show that when you signed the return, you did not know and had no reason to know that the understated tax existed or the extent to which the understated tax existed. Taking into account all the facts and circumstances, it would be unfair to hold you liable for the understated tax. Okay. So you have an understated tax if the IRS determined that your total tax should be more than the amount actually shown on the return. Example, you and your former spouse filed a joint return showing $5,000 of tax, which was fully paid. The IRS later examines the return and finds $10,000 of income that your former spouse earned but did not report. With the additional income, the total tax becomes $6,500. So the understated tax is $1,500 for which you and your former spouse will be both liable. So erroneous items, any income deduction credit or basis, if it is omitted from or incorrectly reported on the joint return. Partial innocent spouse relief. If you knew about any of the erroneous items, but not the full extent of the items, you may be allowed relief for the part of the understatement you did not know about. Okay. So again, there's different ones. You have the separation of liability relief, and you may be allowed separation of liability relief for any understated tax shown on the joint returns. You are now divorced. You are now legally separated or have lived apart at all times during the 12-month period prior to the date that you filed the form. Exception. If at the time you signed the joint return, you knew about any item that resulted in part or all of the understated tax, then your request would not apply to that part of the understated tax. Additional information, you can find that on Separation of Liability Relief, publication 971. And then you have your equitable relief, community property laws. Again, all of this is on the IRS website. I just wanted to throw it out there. I have different clients, that come to me during the years, over the years, and they're filing jointly and things of that nature. And the spouse is being held, responsible and liable for past tax debts or something like that. And so this is something that, you're able to do to possibly have yourself removed from that liability. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. I hope this helps. Again, you can go to the irs.gov website and you can go into your search bar and type in 8857 form, and then it will pull up the information that you'll need. Okay, so you can do that on the irs.gov website. All right, guys, I hope that helped you all out today. Again, thank you all for subscribing to my channel. I will be back with a different video here in a couple of days just to get you all a little more prepared for tax season. Thank you again. Have a very blessed day.